Hey Bitstocks family, Emmanuel here. One question we're often asked is, why aren't Bitcoin withdrawals processed instantly? So before today's podcast begins, I want to take a moment to explain. In short, it comes down to security. When Bitstocks was founded, we decided to create a custodial system that would take advantage of offline storage, also referred to as deep cold storage. Using this as a foundation, we developed Gravity's custody system in the same manner, adding further enhancements over time to offer world-class, ironclad security. As your digital assets are never stored online, this approach dramatically reduced the attack vectors for hackers. However, it also increased the processing time for withdrawals. We promise you there is a rhyme to our reason, and at the end of the day, it comes down to protecting your assets as if they were our own. Bitstocks has been around for nearly 7 years, and there has not been one instance of a security breach to your digital assets. This track record is testament to the integrity of our security framework. For more information on speed versus security with respect to Bitcoin withdrawals on Gravity, check out our blog post by clicking the link in the description below. Hope you enjoy the podcast and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, we are live, my brother. So he's got none other than JoshuaHenslee. The best and most adequate and appropriate way from my standpoint to introduce you is kind of like what I was saying just a second ago. I saw Josh pop on the scene, Canada Coin Geek, and if I'm not mistaken, and by all means correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, you was introduced as someone that's working as a Microsoft consultant at the time, or some way affiliated to Microsoft. And you just done a really, really solid presentation on Bitcoin. And like where SV's going and what things gonna happen. And now you've gone freaking beast mode, dude, on all things token. I know you're writing for CoinGeek and stuff now as well, but you're full-blown beast mode on all things tokens. So Josh, my bro, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm JoshuaHenslee. I used to work in a Microsoft partner organization for about 7 years. And like late 2019, I quit that to go full-time Bitcoin. And I would say it's definitely been the most fun part of my professional career. It's so much more free, and I'm able to move around quickly and work on different things as stuff pops up. And it's just been super fun.
So what you do specifically at the consultancy? Like what you was there for 7 years? What was you doing?
So my primary role is what's called a technical lead. So I would travel to clients where we would do the software implementations, and I would be the lead client-facing technical person. So I would be able to translate what's going on behind the scenes in a way that these guys can understand, while also like managing development, doing development myself. So, and I feel like I've brought that over to Bitcoin.
I was just going to say, dude, like you ain't stopped that job, have you?
You're right.
Okay, so talk to me like I'm 6, right? The reason why I've been quite excited to have this chat is because I know when it comes to the current standing of tokens on BSV, you're someone who's like very at the apex, or at least from my perception, you seem quite very much at the apex of what's going on. You minted a token and you handed those out. So just run me through the journey that got up to that point, and then I guess why that protocol and how you see the landscape, I guess, of protocols.
Yep. So we have many different protocols right now, and not too many of them have been used, at least on the mainnet chain. But when Money Button released their simple Fabric protocol, that kind of busted it wide open, because now you have a way for people that don't know how to code to just mint tokens out of nothing. So what we saw a couple of weeks ago was just kind of an explosion. There was like 1,200 or 1,300 tokens minted in like 2 days.
And this is using that one Fabric protocol. These are all being done on. Okay.
And it's great because now people are kind of busting through this regulation narrative that I think, frankly, has damaged BSV so far. And because now people don't care, they're just having fun. They're sending this stuff around. They're experimenting. They're doing ICOs. But it's all manual, because even though it's great that you have a user interface, there's not really much you can even do, even if you do program with the money button stuff. But it's a great start, right? It's just a good way to get everybody experimenting.
Yeah. So I've seen in a couple of your articles as well, is the point is that you just made there about breaking away from the whole kind of reg narrative and the law narrative, right? And I agree with you on that. 100% agree with you on that. I think it's something that has massively stagnated this space and has actually put most entrepreneurs in this space almost like deers in the headlight. Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm going to be told off like by some dude I don't even know and all the rest of it, right? All the while struggling to put bread and eggs on your table at home, right? So I don't think that's a healthy environment for anyone. I definitely think it's one that I'm really happy to see that we have broken out of that mode and we're just building and creating and applying a little bit of asks for forgiveness as opposed to permission, which is just entrepreneurial spirit, period. So when you say it allowed us to shoot out the gates, so what things are you playing around with now that you wish there were more functionalities to? I think, in fact, before you even get into that, what's your token? The token that you minted, there's 100 of them. What is that? What does it do? And what would you like it to do, I guess?
So I created that token only because I was writing about this SFP for Money Button. So when I created it, I had zero intention of it being have any usage at all. Like if you look at the description, it says SHUA demo tokens, right?
Well, dude, you look at the description of Dogecoin. So you never know, bro. You never know it could go. Don't write it off.
So after I did it, so I just tried to play around with the interface to see if I could actually mint them. And I did. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll post a screenshot on social media. And that kind of took off. And then someone on Twitch asked to buy one. And I just said, well, what's your offer? And he said 25 cents. Yeah. So the first 75 sold for about 25 cents. And then the next 15 sold for $1. And then I kept the rest.
Nice.
But because what happened immediately after that, people started trading on Twitch on their own. So within hours, like I'm talking 2-3 hours, someone had already resold one for $118.
Whoa.
So in response to this, I mean, I know about this Money Button one. One of the things with it, which it depends on how you look at it, it is centralized and it requires an authorizer. Now, for some people, that's a good limitation, right? Depending on what you're trying to do. But the benefit I saw was so many people freely trading it between themselves. So a week later, I decided to reissue the SHUA on the Run protocol, which is complete. It has ownership. I mean, you could bake all that extra stuff in, but pure on the base layer, it's open, meaning people can trade amongst each other just like they can Bitcoin. So I allow people to convert their original Money Button SHUA 1 to 700,000. So some people have converted, and there's still lots of trading going on the new protocol.
That's interesting. So what does the Run bring to the table that a user is going to benefit from, or you as someone who's minting going to benefit? What's more attractive about what Run does as opposed to Fabric beyond the centralized, decentralized argument?
Right. Well, right now, the tools and the custom things you're able to do is just completely wide open. Whereas with the Money Button, they're just getting off the ground. So it's API based and permission based. So you can only do what they let you do with it at the moment. For example, you can't send the Money Button tokens to a one address.
Okay.
Right? You can only send it to a Money Button pay mail. Now, other people like Simply Cash, Relay, these other guys could implement that protocol and let you send pay mail. But I don't know if it'll ever support you just being able to send it to a one address, right?
Yeah.
Also, with the SFP, they explicitly say in their terms that they can just ban people. They'll ban securities, right? Now, I don't know if mine's a security, but it's a risk, right? Especially since these things, I mean, there's no official exchange or anything, but they do have monetary value because they're being flipped for hundreds right now.
Yeah.
But with Ryan, it can take full advantage of Bitcoin script. That's another thing, which I think is powerful. And for me, if I'm going to give these coins some value in the future, I need control. I need full control over them. So because of that, I can build all kinds of stuff to do with these tokens. So for example, I've issued airdrops to people that have used my services in the past. So I have a bot that posts the daily stats of Twetch on Twetch. Everyone who had followed that account, I sent them some SHUA. And I was able to do that, just code up a program to do that. I can't do that on Money Button.
Yeah.
I did the same with my Retrotwetch. If you had ever posted there, I airdropped you some. And then my app Windbell, if someone had used that and paid for one, I also sent them some SHUA.
That's very cool. So interoperability and I guess data schemas, I think is going to become a huge thing within our space. How do you see that play out? Because already it's happening now, right? You just mentioned it yourself. This isn't going to communicate with that. And you mentioned Fabric and you've mentioned Run, but there's more protocols, right? Right now you're being very, I guess, experimental and just playful with what you're doing. But I can imagine you're probably cultivating some real serious entrepreneurial thoughts behind the scenes as well. How are you viewing the landscape about what protocol you're going to utilize and then having, I guess, interoperability moving forward? Or is interoperability even going to be a thing moving forward? Is there just going to be one, or is there going to be interoperability? How do you see it and how are you planning for it?
It's something I've thought about. I've always thought about interoperability outside the scope of tokens, but with tokens, I mean, I have felt that Run is the easiest for people to use. And not to say that there's something wrong with the other token protocols, but I think a gap that we have is if you look at especially something like S-Script, right, which is super cool, layer one, you can utilize Bitcoin script and all that stuff. I don't see how junior or new devs are going to fly with that. Like they're not going to hit the ground running. Whereas with Run, it's just JavaScript and the documentation is really good. So I can totally see people looking at that and being able to do stuff within hours, right? And I think that's not something that most people are looking at because, none of this stuff has even taken off yet, right? So of course, it's natural not to ignore the prospect of new people coming in, like potential newcomers, right? So that's one of the reasons that I am throwing my weight behind Run. I mean, that's proof in how I've migrated already the Money Button ones to Run. And like I said, the control part is, the openness is like, to be able to just do whatever, like, to just code up a web page really quickly that can just scrape the chain, pull data in, and just send stuff out. I think that's powerful. So go back to the interoperability thing. It's something I've thought. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I look at Ethereum. I don't know too much about what goes on there, but I know they've had some success, right? But I'm pretty sure the widely used standard is ERC20.
Yeah, so that's ERC 721, I think, for NFTs.
Right. And I don't know that they have another dominant or another used protocol. So the question I ask is, why would that be different on Bitcoin?
The difference, sorry to cut you off, bro, but the difference there is that Ethereum's whole USP was ERC20. So its unique selling point when it started was, we're the token protocol, we're the smart contract protocol, right? We're the easier place to do it. So they shut out the gates. And even though the Bitcoiners were like, okay, you're Frankensteining this, you're not doing this properly, but the guys shut out the gates and it was a better user experience, 100%, like totally 100%. But with BSV is that we've gone through 12 years of seeing things happen elsewhere. And now it's happening here. And I was like, how should it happen? It's not, oh my God, it happened. It's like, how should it happen? And there's a lot of differences and splits of opinion. Like I'll throw some of my own weight in the equation as well. Like for instance, when I'm looking at all of these different protocols, for a stable coin, right, I'm thinking very law, regulation, right? So there are actors there who I think take that more seriously in a tokenized, that's like, for instance, tokenized as a company, James Balding. I think he's incredibly intelligent and he's very switched on when it comes to global regulatory affairs, AML, KYC, the whole lot. And that for me is quite reassuring when engaging with someone on a token protocol. But then it's like, okay, if I'm going to be real about this, I don't think tokenized is going to be the market share anywhere close to being the market share in BSV. It just kind of feels like my hunch right now, right? And that sucks, right? Because if it is at 1, it sucks because now I've got to think about, well, what's the user experience going to be like, right? And if we're really going to benefit from a one source of truth mentality, also the way that we communicate with one another as businesses needs to reflect that for the user. Whatever witchcraft is going on behind the scenes in order to make this protocol work with this protocol, that's on us, right, bro? But for the user, it just needs to be smooth. How do you see that being achievable? Do you see that being achievable, or even do you see hand cash integrating more than one token protocol?
I think they're hesitant to implement any token protocol. I mean, they're very vocally against it. As proof is, with Haste recent announcement that they're doing a token. And I mean, Handcash went on the offensive pretty much saying that, we're just against we only want real use tokens. But the interoperability thing, another thing with that, like you mentioned, the user experience, that's going to be really difficult to achieve if you're having to implement more than one, because you might put all your focus. I could just speak from a developer. You could put all your focus into making it really smooth for this one protocol, but then now you're asked to support a second one. I mean, that's a brand new implementation. I mean, because if they're radically different, especially in the aspect of authorization, right? That's a completely new implementation. It's not like I can just take something from here and then use it here. I can only use the UI. I can't use the back end. Like, it's new. It's completely new. I think I saw it was Mirror BSV, this account. They've done some stuff with the money button ones, and they claim they're going to support all of them. And I'm thinking that's going to take a long time. Like, that's just a lot of development. And it would be much easier if you just support one, right? Because then you can optimize for that. And then as people do that, I think one ends up being dominantly used. That's just how I see things. Now, I don't know if it's going to be run. I don't know if it's going to be any of these other things. But this is how I see it playing out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, bro. In the idealistic world, I've been having quite a few conversations on this. And it's like, in the idealistic world, abso-freaking-lutely. It's like, we didn't integrate with Gravity, Ethereum, and all these other chains because of this, right? I was like, we're not servicing all these other chains. And as soon as Bitcoin Cash started to piss around talking about split, it was like, we're not doing this. Like, we're so done with this period of this bullshit, right? But when it comes to then, okay, super focused, super lockdown, hunkered, SV, all our tech, hunkered, SV, solvency model, solvency solution, all hunkered, top SV, then it's like, okay, now there's potentially going to be different protocols of tokens. I was like, all right, I'm down and I'm mindful of integrating maybe 1, 2. Anything beyond 2, I'm like, yeah, we're going to create this bullshit scenario. So then I will actually probably be lobbying for business owners to get together on a call, right? As like, we got to make a freaking decision here. Right? As collectively as a space, let's make it open. Let's get the community in. Let the community freaking vote. But like, we need to make a decision here, because otherwise, what you're saying, I really can see manifesting, and then actually causing divergence in the space and actually divide in the space.
I don't know that a get together is necessary. I think the market can handle this, because as soon as you have major companies going towards a certain one, I think that everyone else will have to follow, or they'll get left behind.
Yeah.
Now that could be contentious, but I think this is all solved by the market, right? Because if these leading group of companies are unsuccessful, then that leaves the door open for somebody else to come in with whatever they want. and push things forward. So I think the market will do it. Like, I think, as soon as some people start doing some fun stuff and, generating revenue and getting lots of usage, I think then other people will naturally,
flock towards that.
Yeah.
So what's that use case then? NFTs? Like, which one of these protocols do you think is more suitable to NFTs? What's your view on NFTs and NFTs on Bitcoin SV? How do you see that whole space? It's vibing and popping on Ethereum.
Right.
How do you see that? And I'll say this is genuinely the first legitimate where I'm like, no, this is mainstream now. This is mainstream conversation. My phone has done nothing but blow up since this whole NFT thing has been kicking up. And I'm talking about calls from really interesting individuals where I'm like, you want to talk crypto now, do you? Right. So now you want to talk crypto, yeah? Now's the time, yeah? So it's been amazing conversations happen. I'm talking, dude, like some big individual names and some big companies they're getting excited about this. This is definitely something SV can't fuck around on and be lagging behind and waiting on permission about. How do you see this whole NFT landscape?
So as far as protocols, again, I'm biased towards Run because Run is actually optimized for NFTs, which is odd because the usage lately has been the fungible token stuff. But it was designed for non-fungible tokens. And I mean, I know True Reviews, Crypto Fights, and some other apps implemented that as early as 2019 on the main chain and Run.
Nice.
So that's been going for some time now. Granted, Crypto Fights is still in beta. True Reviews has pivoted to a new branding. And I still haven't watched Connor's recent presentation, but so I'm not sure what's happening there, but I'm just saying that it's been tried out. Right?
Yeah.
The NFTs in general, I think we need to. Now is the time to get in on that because it's, with more people wanting to do it, the fees start to become prohibitive. I saw people complaining on social media that the fees are like $40, $50, and that might be fine for people that bought ETH in like 2016, but for new people who don't even know what ETH is, they're like, I'm priced out. And even people that have lots of crypto, they might say, I'm just not gonna pay that. So, but when you look at BSV to mint one, I mean, we're talking, a tenth of a penny.
Yeah.
But the value can be appropriated the same way. So, I don't know if they're baking that in on Ethereum. They probably are, but even if we're talking thousands, right? I mean, the potential for volume there is much higher. But I think that this comes back to what we said at the beginning. It's like the deer in the headlights. It's like, I don't know if I want to do this. And we also don't have the tools for it yet. So it's not like anyone can just go make an NFT. You have to be a coder to do that right now.
Yeah. So in terms of what you would like to see, so you as a coder, programmer, which you're doing great videos on YouTube as well, by the way. So thank you for providing that for the community. Because I know you do actually do the Run tutorials and stuff and how to mint a token on your YouTube channel. But I think that's also kind of like testament as to maybe how difficult it is that someone like you is required to really look, guys, this is how it works. This is what you need to do this. What would you like to see to make your life easier? Because people like you are always going to be required, period. And certainly in this space, but to make your life easier in explaining these concepts, what would you like to see adopted in Run in particular then?
The primary issue for me, I would say, been for the last at least 8 months is there is no token support from the wallets. Now, Relay has started to do that as of last fall, but it's only ones that they service. So it's not like I can just create one and then it pops up in the wallet. Money Button has that, but again, it's permission. So from my requirement standpoint, it doesn't satisfy. I need a wallet where I can just make a token and then it pops up in the wallet. Otherwise, if that doesn't exist, I can tell you right now, I have tools ready for this type of stuff, but I can't launch it until I have a wallet that supports it because, okay, yeah, I can make an NFT art, but from a user, where do I see it? Right? Like, for example, I could put a mint out there right now, right? And say, here you go. You can put a picture. You got your NFT. Here's the transaction ID. It's in this address. I can show them all that. But if they can't see it and they can't like send it, then they don't own it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it might be a ledger entry, but that's all it is, right? So without that part, we can't go. Like, we need that first, and then we can go.
Joe, I'm smiling. I'm holding back my smile because what you're asking for is so basic. Like, we should have that, right? You're like, dude, I just need it to appear in a fucking wallet. And I'm good. I'm ready to go. Like, I just need a freaking wallet. Wow, 12 years.
Yeah.
And that's what it is that we're saying. Okay. Well, that's positive because that's relatively easy to fix. Right? So definitely positive, but still at the same time, like, wow, that's pretty shocking. Okay. So in Twetch's implementation, and what they've done with obviously the hat, and their NFT, just I guess your take on all of that stuff and just what it does for you in terms of excitement, knowing what you're working on behind the scenes and stuff as well.
Yeah, what they did was really cool because, you know, they put something out. Like, I saw the mint. I was like, as soon as they launched that, I went in and looked at the transactions because I was curious how they look. And I saw where they minted all the hats, and, you know, it looks like they're using something that's more proprietary, meaning like it's not like there's no spec out there for people to come and adopt themselves, but you can see the data on chain and all that stuff, and you can see the references. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, the way they're swapping, it looks pretty interesting. I think they're doing an atomic swap.
Atomic swaps, yeah.
I don't know the details of the implementation, but I mean, yeah, it is pretty cool. And I think it's proof that we can do it, right? Like that Bitcoin can do this stuff. So, and, you know, they made lots of money when they launched those hats, you know, and they got some trades going and people were very excited about it.
Yeah, if you want one, Josh, I've got one for sale. It's $369,000, mate. And of course, I accept BSV. But for you, I'd even take Ethereum, I'll take BTCs, whatever you want. But $369,000. But Joe, it was nuts because there was 3 big things that were meant to happen that day. Calvin's announcement, right? Craig's announcement, which Craig's one's cool. Like, that's going to be huge when a turkey's ready. It's going to be huge and everyone's going to have a great Christmas dinner. But Calvin's most certainly was a huge nothing burger. And the hat is what got me incredibly excited. And obviously all of the technology behind its hat. But that's a real lasting buzz, like genuinely a real lasting buzz. And many people, just like my social circle, social media, etc. When we put the video out there, just a couple of snippets out there, like I said, my phone's been blowing up off the back of that. So this NFT stuff, like really has captivated the imagination of mainstream because they can genuinely understand that, okay, this now affects me. This is a way of where I can get value. And I think what's super awesome as well is it's traditionally a area where they've always historically got a really shit deal with value, which is creatives, right? So artists, musicians, etc. And now these guys are making fortunes, millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some very small amounts of time. And for me watching it, it's interesting because one, I'm like, fuck yeah, great. I don't give a shit if it's on Ethereum. I'm so glad and thankful that these guys get to witness this and see what's truly possible. And there's a way that value can be earned through their talents directly and cutting out all the middlemen, all that. Super pro that. But then I'm looking at it thinking, yo, dude, you're playing like a Pokemon trading game effectively with gas fees that you don't know if your Charizard card is going to be worth it to transfer in a couple of years. Like the gas just might be too much that you think, fuck it, I'm gonna leave Charizard where he is. And I'm not gonna, and I can't move the bugger. And I can't keep like stressing and saying it to the point where I just feel like I'm kind of turning into a parrot myself. But again, that's our time, right? This is like the volume and the things it is that we need to like grab and drag over. And I'm being mad aggressive on this now as well, Josh. Like I'm starting to make some moves. I know Josh is making some moves, but we need to now be able to be like, all right, See this that you're seeing over here on Ethereum? We can do that right now. Like right now. And here's the experience. This is what it is. And that way I can remove the word BSV from the equation. And it genuinely does become a conversation about you trading Pokemons online. Like Pokemon, the equivalent of Pokemon cards online. If there's ever a time to transition people away from other projects into BSV, I genuinely feel NFTs is like one of our better shots of doing it within the spirit of what crypto is today. And I think all the other aspects of us being invisible, truly plumbing, businesses going on top of it and all that stuff's coming 100%. We've also got a horse in that race as well with the whole banking side to what we're building and putting on top of BSV. But in terms of like really keeping the spirit of crypto and what's current in crypto right now and actually having an opportunity that we're not lagging behind, like you said yourself, right? Crypto Fights was implemented in NFT-derived tech in 2019. Yeah, I'm just a bit frustrated with waiting, right?
Yes.
And I can imagine you must be, because you're doing YouTube videos on this stuff. Trying to get more people into it.
One of the reasons we're in that position is because, like, to your point about, you brought up tokenized earlier, and then even Run, right? I mean, people were building on Run in 2019, but Brenton, the founder, he ended up changing the protocol, which I know it put me, it put Crypto Fights, it put some other folks in a holding pattern, because it's the same thing. It's no different than like what BCH has been doing with just arbitrary changes. Like, okay, well, I'm stuck. There's no point in me continuing to build when the thing's going to change.
Yeah,
I know Tokenized has changed their protocol many times, and that's prohibited basically anyone from building on top of it. So, we claim BSV as a set protocol, but these token protocols keep changing it, right? Now, with that said, I think Tokenized is set, Run is set only as of late December. So Run was private before December 2020, yet had adoption as early as 2019. So like that just tells you like we've only just been able to go forward. And Twitch's thing, it just came out, right? Like it's been 2 weeks. So, like you were saying, Ethereum's booming. Are we ready? It doesn't look like it, right? Like we're just getting started. Now, that said, I'm more optimistic in these last 2 weeks than I've ever been about
100.
Where we're going.
Yeah.
But with that said, we're slow to react. And then you have the division in the space, because you can see right now with this token thing booming, you can see a lot of people.
It's sizzling up, right?
Yeah, law. Are you a registered license? Like, who cares? Like, we just need to go. We don't have the luxury to question use cases at this point. It's freaking number 30 on CoinMarketCap, and people act like it's not a problem.
Dude, EOS is above us.
Yeah.
Sushi's, like everything. Yeah. Like everything.
Yeah. And everyone's act like, oh, this is fine. It's like the dog in the house that's burning down.
They're burning, yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, we have to go, and we're sitting here debating, oh, can I do this? Like, we don't have the luxury, man. Like, we can't be saying, it's no different than saying BTC does spam transactions. Like, if you want to transact for 1 sat a byte, that's spam. It's no different. It's the same thing, right?
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. I remember those conversations happening on the forums. I remember those. And I remember how viciously that reemerged in the whole hash war debates, the 1 megabyte stuff and all that BS. Dude, you're bang on with that. It really is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
So with people not aligned, I think that's why we keep dropping, is because we're not in a position to take advantage. Now, granted, I think that's about to change. I think that, what Relay is doing is great. What Twitch is doing is great. I think we're about to move the space. I do think a lot of people are going to be unhappy, though.
Yeah.
Because, that is what it is. I think it won't matter once people start making money. And like you said, if they're onboarding, not for BSV, but for SHUA or for some token on Money Button or for some NFT hat, they don't care, right?
They don't. They really don't.
Like, I think that's the case in ETH. I don't think those guys care about Ethereum. I think they care about stablecoins. They care about sushi. They care about swapping in between, getting in and trading. They don't give a shit about the base thing. So like all that stuff about Craig, Calvin, it becomes a non-factor overnight, because they want this thing. They want this meme coin. They don't want They don't even care. They just need to get some to pay fees. Shoot, because it's so low, they're probably not even gonna have to pay them because the service can just eat it, right? That's the other thing with ETH, right? Like I think Polymarket, that's like a prediction market thing.
Yeah.
I think they tried to eat fees, but when it got crazy, their service was just, the UX is just terrible. I think they continued to do it, but people couldn't trade as fast. But on BSV, the service can just eat them. They could just say, "Oh, I don't care about 200 Satoshis." You know what I mean? On an ETH, it's like a business cannot eat a $20 transaction fee because that'll just get out of control, right?
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you know that $20 ain't even fixed in anyway. So let's keep that optimism train going, right? So how do you see the next 12 months of this landscape within BSV? How do you see that playing out? And how does that set the primer to what the next few years looks like? And what does that few years look like?
So I wrote about what Haste just put out. So Haste, they launched the app on Handcash Connect that was very popular, and they've only been around for 2 months at this point. But it's simple game, but that ends up paying people out really fast and that sort of thing. I don't want to cover the game, but I wrote about what they launched with their token and their white paper. The immediate question from the space was, why do they need a token? Blah 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 blah. But if they read it and understand like the incentives behind it, they can see that this is extremely powerful. Like the implications of this, I feel like are huge. And this is one of the reasons I'm so optimistic. They're launching a token that can be used for future discounts that get dispersed as rewards, almost like stocks, except it's like true ownership. They reward the gamers, the investors, the developers, and of course the founders, right? But it aligns incentives in a very interesting way that can create new business models for lots of different people. So one point I'll bring up in that article is because of the fees and ETH, the guys hitting a wall every single time they do something cool, that means their creativity is blocked as well.
Yeah, 100%.
But on BSV, that's non-existent because you're never going to hit that wall. So now use cases that didn't exist or business models that couldn't exist now are possible, right? And this is why I've never lost faith. Like even though the price keeps dropping, is because I know that every other chain, they're bound. They're going to hit something. But here, it can keep going lower, but the potential is just so great that I just feel like it's almost inevitable because it's going to attract so many people to just build stuff they never thought of before. Wow. So, but this is the case with tokens. So like, BSV's in this trap. Oh, we want to own real world stuff because they're juxtaposing that against BTC, Ethereum, EOS, etc. Right? Some would argue they're clear scams. Some are, some aren't, right? But that's what you're looking at. You're looking at ICOs, Ponzi schemes, DeFi. Some of that stuff's legit, but you're comparing only that against tokens. That's why I think the narrative is so it's very
skewed. Yeah.
But because of the you don't have the economic sanctions, like that's what it is, then you can do all kinds of stuff, man. Like it will be like when people came to America in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah. It's a good analogy. Very good analogy. And I agree with your sentiment as well. Is where that I normally describe exactly the same thing. You're talking about creativity, right? And this is where I had a real big bee in my bonnet about the scaling debate, is because the arrogance of stunting creativity or claiming that you can speak on the creativity of man, right? And say 1 megabyte, that's it. I was like, you just killed all creativity. A way that I likened it to is I just see blockchain as a paper and pen. Blockchain's paper, tokens pen, right? You need to have detail. So if I give that piece of pen to an artist and I say to him, okay, you got 3-4 strikes of the paper and each strike on the paper is going to cost you $20. How much detail drawing is that going to build? It's going to look like Mr. Men, right? You read the Mr. Men books you growing up as a kid? It's going to be Mr. Men, right? In BSV, that can have the most detail that you fucking possibly want. It can be like a kick-ass comic scene. It can be a Mona Lisa. It can be whatever the hell it is that you want to create, because the limitation is your state of consciousness. So you could use that pen however you see fit, because the ink is so infinitely cheap and finite and easy to use, right? Instead of being clumped and glued up like it is in these other chains and these other projects. But ultimately, it is the unlocking of human creativity, which is the most important thing and a be-all and end-all, really. So America, early 1800s, and then, okay, rebuilding. We've got this unlocking of creativity. What are the things that you see yourself doing in that landscape, right? So what's the next journey for Josh? I can't see you just staying in your present status and what people perceive to be your present status, and you not being like super in the mix, building behind the scenes. So without revealing, I guess, too much, how does the story of Josh evolve in this space? And what can we expect to see from what it is that you're doing?
So one big priority is going to be the education stuff. So I think there will be an influx of people because of what's being built. I think that's going to attract new devs. We're already kind of seeing that. And I just want to put stuff out there that they can use so they can go fast. They can hit the ground running and start building stuff. So I'll have a more focus on my YouTube channel this year, which I've already done. I've done 3 tutorials so far. So I'll continue to do that. The second will be starting to implement token stuff into apps that I've built. So my Windbell app, I have lots of ideas around that. I haven't pushed it too much because it's very limited in what it can do. But I've wanted to put tokens in it for quite some time, but it goes back to that problem I mentioned, is the lack of wallet support. But I think these things will become non-issues pretty shortly. So and I think that's interesting too, because you might have other people that have the same, where they have apps they built last year, and maybe they go back to them saying, "Oh, now that I have tokens, what can I do?" Yeah. And then another thing I've been working on is a game, but again, it's using token stuff, NFTs and things like that. So with the space moving in this direction, something like, especially what Hayes just launched, I might be able to port that to what they're doing with their leaderboard payout, and that'll, that's something I didn't even think of, and now they're just putting it out there. So and that's the other thing, is like when people build stuff that's open, it's not like when you buy a house in the suburbs, right? It's like, okay, it's like I can take that house and now bring it somewhere else and do more stuff with it. So I think that, and that's all because we're using the Shane Ledger. So I think that's really cool. So that's kind of what to look for with me, is like, continuing to build on the token front, education, and, new apps, but as well as bringing tokens into my older apps.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you said that and the whole educational stuff. Because like I said, bro, thank you for putting out the videos that you have put out. They're very informative. I've watched them myself. I'm going to continue to watch them myself. I'm not a dev at all. I'm just very sympathetic to you guys' world. But I really ain't trying to be like fully ingrained and part of it. Fortunately, I've got obviously David here, CTO, who heads that side up. But we're going through, say, growing pains of really increasing our bandwidth, because like I said, we're getting about it this year. So like we're really increasing the bandwidth, but like cultivating people who understand this world is organic thing. It's a very organic thing. So having resources out there that aid and assist that, where we could just be like, look, watch this, watch that, just takes so much burden off, say, David, who will have to like sit here and do way more of that and take that on his own shoulders. So if there are people like yourself who are out there doing this kind of educational content for devs and people who are trying to build in this space, it's freaking huge, man. If companies in this space, like who are already established, should be paying a lot of attention to that, because we will be. What else do you find exciting, dude? Like beyond everything that we just discussed token wise, I know clearly you really like Haste. So I've not used Haste, by the way, so I'm definitely gonna go check out Haste. Before cameras went on, you mentioned migrating. So you said that you've moved from Cali, and now you're in Georgia, right? You're Atlanta. Yeah. Okay. Was there much of a BSV community in Cali?
So yeah, we were doing meetups. I was doing monthly meetups with Ryan and some of the guys out there. So SHUA from Script, Kevin from Arc. So
nice.
people that are kind of known were going to these, and we were doing that every month. So
yeah.
That was great, but obviously all that stopped in March.
Yeah.
But when I went out there, I had always thought about it as temporary. I went out there because my now wife came over from Japan to work as an expat. So I just went and moved in.
All right, dude. I've got to ask it now. And I can say it because black don't crack. Dude, 7 years you said that you was working as a consultant before you entered this space. And you've just mentioned that you have a wife. How old are you, dude?
I'm 30.
Dude, congratulations on being wise and grown and grounded. You've got your wife, you're building your foundation. I'm actually your age plus a little bit of VAT. Okay. I'm 33. But go on, continue saying.
So when all this Corona crap happened, I knew, okay, we need to go back. I need to go back home too, because I'm in my home here that I've owned this place since 2013. And I just rented it when I went out. So I came back. It was easy to come back here. And my family's here. It just made a lot more sense. And, the difference between Georgia and California in terms of the reaction to this stuff is, night and day.
Yeah. So go into that. When you say reactions to this stuff, what do you mean? What do you mean in particular? So you're just part of the California exodus? You migrated away from California, just felt just different vibe, or?
One quick thing on that. Almost all my friends that I made in California have already left.
No way.
Yeah.
Because I like to think that I'm relatively connected. I've got lots of good friends in California, some of which have left. Major ones that I thought would have left didn't leave though. And Cali is a place that when I go to the States, is where I go and I fly in. But as you can imagine, on the opposite side of the pond looking in, with everything that's going on in the world, it's like now become the least desirable place for me to go, which is very unfortunate. But that's, again, outside looking in, which I never like to take as 100% gospel. So what have you experienced? What is going on this year? What's the vibe in the field like that's caused that?
It was very, even in Atlanta, it's disappointing, man. Like I lived here all my life, and to see what's happened to these cities is, Atlanta, I'm very sad about. California, I don't care as much because to me, they had it coming. And also a lot of it's self-imposed. In Georgia, it's a little different because I can just go 20 miles outside and it's the same. Like I go 20 miles outside and it's like, what is Corona? Seriously.
Nice.
But in the city, it's like people are still freaked out. And, it's been a year, man, after 2 weeks of flatten the curve, and I'm just sick of it. So like when we go out for date night, I will no longer be going to these restaurants that have these silly rules. I'm going outside the city. People are more based there. They just don't care. They want people's business. Just keep it simple, and I'll probably be moving soon, just out in the country somewhere to, that's just immune from all this stuff. But in San Jose, so I live in San Jose, which, is about 40 miles south of San Francisco. It was like, it was almost like an apocalypse, man. Like it was terrible. Like, I can give an example. So there's a grocery store walking distance from me. It's called Kroger. It's like it's been around for a long time. I go there. They have the same signs, right? They say, wear a mask. We're doing 50% capacity. But I don't know if you know this, but you could tell when a business is just like, playing around with this just to keep people from messing with them versus actually enforcing it. Yeah. I go to the Safeway in California, back in April. There's freaking lines out like it's communist North Korea. And it's like, what are we doing? This freaking store has plenty of food. Why are we waiting outside? Like, just because, we got to enforce 25% capacity. Like, it's just, it doesn't make any sense, man. Like,
Bro, so I take it you don't have a mask collection then?
Oh, no.
What's your take overall on it all? Clearly I could tell that you're not buying into the public narrative.
Right.
But what narrative are you subscribing to? And how has that, I guess, influenced your commitment or lack of commitment to your entrepreneurial journey? Like, we're just where you at basically right now in the midst of everything that's going on.
So I mean, when it first happened in January, I was already making fun of it. Like I mean, you know, it's easy to say now, you know, right? Because no one was with me. But I mean, my wife can attest. Like, I was calling this stuff out way before all the stuff actually happened, right? And I've never taken it seriously. I mean, there's just, to me, it's. I mean, also don't watch TV, so that might be part of it that keeps me sane. But you know, it's just, it's crazy that I can be in Atlanta. And I can just drive 20 miles or 40 miles outside the city, and it's just completely different. Like, that means that people are just kind of living in different like everyone's different, and everyone has the right to react to this way the way they want. It's just, for me, I just don't want to be around that because there's certain expectations set, right? Like, for example, we walked up to an ice cream shop the other day. And for some reason, they're like mandating masks. It's outdoors. And so all these families come over and they have their kids wearing masks. And I'm just sitting there. I mean, I refuse to do it. So like, I'm just sitting there and, only these people can make going to an outdoor ice cream shop stressful.
I'm wondering how these kids are eating ice cream with these fucking masks on, mate. I'm sitting there, I'm going to wait and see how this plays out.
Like, I feel like, even though I know I'm not, I just feel like these folks are almost scared that someone's here that has the face uncovered. So it's like, it's stressing me out.
Yeah, cancel culture.
Right? Man. It's just, so I just don't, so anyway, positively, right? You asked about entrepreneurial stuff. I really feel like if we can achieve our vision, which is scaling this stuff, we can kind of change the narrative. It might be naive of me or optimistic, but especially when you see stuff like popping up that's similar, like NFTs, that whole GameStop situation in terms of the corruption in the financial markets, you can see tangibly how Bitcoin at scale, it doesn't solve these problems, but it really makes a dent in, how people start thinking about this stuff, right?
I think to be honest with you, bro, given enough time, I think the only reason why it doesn't solve it immediately is because it's a time factor. Yeah. Given enough time, I genuinely think it solves everything in this regard, because the way that I see Bitcoin is a mirror, right? It just whacks down on Earth like a monolithic scene of Space Odyssey, 2001, and you got the primates touch it. Yeah. And once touched, humanity can be genuinely upgraded. But you can live a life of darkness. Bitcoin says that Bitcoin doesn't mean you have to live a path of light. You can live a path of darkness. Cool. As long as you're willing to see your reflection and the world to see your reflection, right? And if you walk a path of light, well, the world seeing your reflections actually now become a USP, right? Because being honest is a USP. It's now the way to operate in society. And I think ultimately, because it is such a mirror and that's so polarizing, which is why the worst thing in the world to the establishment that could possibly happen is a mirror being installed, right? Because now everyone can see the fuckery, point blank. Everyone can see who you are, what it is that you're doing, and what conglomerate or cluster of bad intention you're a part of and represent. And because it is such a great mirror and has the potential to be an incredible mirror at scale, I don't think we're the only guys who've clearly worked this stuff out. I think the people who stand the most to lose work this out. And they realize just how radically polarizing this will be and what it will do in order to status quo. I'd even go so far as to say it's kind of like why they help fuel and throw money and grow this space to over $1 trillion to deny people the ability of understanding that this is truly a mirror. It's like, what is the real cost of creation at the top for $1 trillion. It's not much. But if people realize that this system is a mirror and it can implement systems of true honesty, because even if we do go through like let's say that your president, your new president, and then she point at you like it's your fault. Your president, Josh, your freaking president, right? Let's say your dude that got installed with dictator guards and like fucking fences, which are not temporary, they're still there. And then they're talking about increasing more guards when inauguration was like forever ago. And the guy hasn't done a real public appearance or answered questions from press since he's been in office. But with your amazing new president, Joshua, who you are taking full responsibility for, when it comes to this climate, this geopolitical climate, lockdown, no lockdown, shut down the economy, not shutting down the economy. And then genuinely, I look at what's going on in crypto, what's going on in SV, and just how important this tech is. It's the most, almost to the point of salivating amount of opportunity and optimism. But at the same time, that I always firmly keep my present and reality hat on, I'm like, yo, this might have got just a little bit more difficult. It's like all the right stuff's happening, but strategically, this might just got a little bit more difficult. Because going back to the sentiment of what we're saying around tokens, etc. Okay, and why I think your approach is actually the right approach, considering the landscape and approach that you're promoting for people to follow is the right approach for the landscape. Is Tether mints billions and billions and billions of dollars. Okay, I don't want to pull out like the race card and all the rest of it, bro. But I'll tell you what. If you and I minted Tether, if we created Tether, how long do you think until we're got our face on some cold steel bars? How long do you think it will be, Josh?
Well, look at Arthur Hayes, right?
Yeah, what is the latest with Arthur Hayes, actually?
They're about to bring him back. I guess they found him.
They found him? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, like proof of testament. But genuinely, like, no bullshit. Like, if we was to create Tether, that would have been shut down ages ago. But Tether minted billions, and so far as what we've publicly seen, they have paid a fine of $18.5 million, which the 30 billion that they minted, 30 billion plus, ain't even really the bulk of how these boys made their money, right?
Right.
They're pumping, dumping. They've made a freaking fortune. $18.5 million is like a parking ticket on a golf to them.
Yes.
Right? So we're touting and pushing law regulation, which genuinely, like 100%, I take seriously. Like, I'm taking it hyper seriously. I get it. I'm doing it. I fucking get it. I'm doing it. But at the same time, you make billions and you pay millions in fines and fees. And then in the landscape of the world, I can't go out to a restaurant, right? Now, you mentioned a restaurant like about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, right? Explaining how bad things are in the US. Dude, I can't even go to a restaurant right now. We ain't be able to go to a restaurant in God knows how long in the UK. And it's like, start, stop, no logic. 1 minute, no mask, next minute mask, and then it's 2 masks, right? Next minute, let me do a swab up your nose to test. Then I'm hearing that you test a zucchini, is test positive for COVID. Then next minute, China wants to stick the swab up your ass, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, looking at all of these different factors and components. Like, none of this stuff ultimately makes sense. It all sounds like it's just a recipe for cognitive dissonance on the planet. But then when I really bring it back home, 2 premises, which is, all right, don't be as permission-based, considering everything that's going on. I'm not saying go out there and break the law. Absolutely freaking not. It's not what I promote. But like, don't be as permission. We're on the cusp of innovation. We're at the apex of things that haven't been created, right? Stay on the apex and keep riding the track, right? Hit apex after apex after apex. And And also like the other side is if we don't get ready and we just sit here waiting on permission, like just twiddling our thumbs, you got to realize the whole reason why we're even here like this is because they didn't want you to exist in the first place, right? We're the mirror, remember? So if we as the mirror are sitting here, we're like, ooh, waiting to play, waiting for permission to play. Like, dude, they didn't fucking want you to play in the first place. So we need to get out there. We need to be obviously a lot more aggressive. So like, bro, like, thank you for touting and pushing this whole token space, and showing and leading by example that, look, guys, just create. You didn't try and create no fucking security. You didn't try to do none of that. You just said, look, create. We can start creating. Let's start ultimately creating. And I think collectively as a space, we can start giving the other projects a little bit of a bloody nose in just like migrating and pulling some users over.
Yeah, the Tether thing, that should be a big wake-up call because, number one, it makes a lot of people that were calling FUD look silly. Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong because I think they were right. Even the stuff that Craig was saying, he was right. But all of them, Craig included, they look really stupid right now, right? Because they ignore the human aspect. They ignore, okay, yeah, I broke the law. But just because people break the law, it depends, right? Yeah, if you're just a person trying to go into a store where they're trying to have arbitrary restrictions and you say no, and then they bring you down and arrest you, yeah, that person gets punished. But if you're freaking George Soros and you just go and, hire a bunch of people to go to Minnesota to protest, then that's fine, right? So with Tether, all they have to do is say, oh, okay, we did all that, we counterfeited all this money. Okay, Letitia, here you go. Here's some money. And, you get off free, right? So, like, they ignore that part. They ignore that, oh, the government's corrupt too. And that's the whole reason we're in this mess is because the governments have overstepped their power, right?
And without historical evidence of ever relinquishing the overreach, right? And if you look at the collapse of every great empire, Romans are not excluded from this. Overreaching government power. All-time high of lack of confidence in government due to the overreach of government power, along with minting, shaving, and all the other like monetary fuckery in the background, which, let's be honest, what are we doing around the world? We're minting, we're creating, we're overreaching. This music ain't gonna end well. When the music, it's not gonna end well. And I genuinely believe it's not our opportunity to clear out the shadows. But let's say, I'm not gonna say divine intervention because I don't really like that term. I'm more pro divine reaction because I think we all have our own role to raise our own vibrations and trigger a divine reaction, which empowers us and not just let's leave this to somebody else and it's somebody else's thing. But once that we really do start getting a clearer, fairer system, one thing that I can say with absolute confidence, and I'm happy to be stood corrected on this by anyone in the comment section or otherwise, once we have this purge and we have a purification event where things are just better, we clear up this whole pandemic stuff, we hopefully get behind the crimes against humanity that even introduced this pandemic stuff. We have Nuremberg trials version 2, right, if that ever happens. If this really is a huge fraud and that these crimes genuinely have been committed, and somehow America didn't deem Biden more popular than Barack Obama, right? Let's assume that, like, all right, like these stuff were fraudulent. The only way to ensure that the effed upness doesn't continue and the shadows don't return and don't continue is if Bitcoin SV scales, and we are integrated on top of it, that prevents the shadows from ever returning. And I don't know what other technology there is to do that, Josh, that will keep humanity honest if we do have a clearing event.
It doesn't exist today, that's for sure.
And that 100% is our role, dude. And from my standpoint, again, just want to say thank you, dude, for doing what you're doing. Is there any last words you want to sound out on?
Yeah, I think this Tether thing should be, I think a lot of BSV folks thought it was going to pump their bags in a sort of roundabout way because, this BTC thing's going to come crashing down, rah, 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 rah. And, frankly, I'm surprised BTC didn't pump to 60K as soon as the news broke.
Yeah.
But to me, I look at that as, to me, that signals that the government is trying to get in on this too, however they want. But that also gives the green light to people to do similar, not break the law, but that means they can get away with a lot of stuff because, if you do $1 million ICO, chances are nothing's going to happen to you, right? If these guys just did something very big and, you can look at EOS too, it's very similar. I think they only paid 24 million. Right. And who's not
multi-billion dollar ICO.
Right.
EOS.
Right. And 24 is nothing. Like I'm sure they'll gladly take it. And that was Larimer's third ICO.
Funny things, yeah, but very, very fun. We mentioned two projects there. Very close related ties. And the unifier of those ties is Brock Pierce, which we don't have. Yeah. That's the right reaction, bro. That's the right reaction. So we don't even need to go into it. Everyone take that reaction. That's the reaction. Look into it based on that reaction.
But I think it should be empowering. Like it should say, okay, the government's they're bound by economics, right? They're not going to come after people for doing thousands of dollars of technically illegal stuff because it's just not worth their time. And if you get big enough, they're just going to say, hey, give us a piece too. Yeah. So I think now's the time to innovate. It's just time to not worry about that stuff because we need to go, and we don't have the luxury of trying to limit use cases based off some moral high ground. And
also the greatest respect. I know you contribute to his website, and I'm quite publicly not most biggest fan of Mr. Calvin Ayre.
Oh yeah.
But dude, like, I respect him as a business person. He is one of the sharpest people I've sat down and had a conversation with. And when it comes to business, like the guy ain't a joke, incredibly intelligent, very, very sharp. But also at the same time, I'm pretty confident he was on the US Most Wanted list for his gambling business,
yes.
Which is a very dark field, a very gray area. And he came out of that a king, and he's washed himself down. I also think BSV and his community is part of him washing his past down and creating a new narrative that will go on his headstone. But then you're also like slapping down everyone who effectively is, to a degree, following in your footsteps, right?
Just look at the person who has the most obfuscated, private, no one knows what the hell in it trust, telling everybody that they need to follow the law.
True that, but then there's nothing wrong with trust. I actually think what Craig done with the whole trust stuff is pretty kick-ass, because trust law, that's something that I actually studied quite a bit before I was even in Bitcoin. And there's a plethora of benefits with trust law. You can do them, of course, quite for dodgy reasons and all the rest of it, but as a wealth protection mechanism and a way to separate yourself from ownership, right? Ownership and control, very different things. Trust law taught me that before Bitcoin, which is why I took the concept of Bitcoin quite easily. Like ownership, control, very, very different things. But I agree with the sentiment ultimately. I think the biggest thing really is, what I find quite interesting in Craig, I know I said we're wrapping things up, but like, fuck it, this always happens. And my team's gonna moan at me for going over, but it happens. Every time I've engaged with Craig, like the guy is genuinely, my opinion of Craig, I really think the guy's a nice guy. Like no interaction that I've had with him has made me feel any way about him as an individual. If anything, I always feel quite sympathetic after engaging with Craig. I also see that Craig gives a lot of people his time, like a lot of people's time. Like I've never recollected a time where I've hit up Craig and he didn't give me time, or asked, Craig, can I have a quick chat? And he didn't give me time. And I know he does that for so many freaking people. So he's an armadillo. Like no matter what he is an armadillo. Like he's tough on the outside, but he's soft on the inside. Yeah, he genuinely really is. The circle jerk, as to like what's going on within the MetaNet Slack, which I'm still a member of. I still check in there every now and again. I understand why he is there, but I also don't think he's doing himself any favors. Craig has pioneered something that is arguably one of the most dangerous things to be invented in the last 100 years, that opposes how the system has been run up until this point. Just for that alone and his execution of it, he's a completely different kettle of fish. That when I'm speaking on, like, say, the actors in this space, and then like talk about his buddy, his business partner buddy, like this guy's in a completely different like category, and I don't think he should be throwing his weight around the way he's throwing his weight around, unless he's getting permission from Craig to be tarnishing his work in this way, which I don't imagine is the conversations that are truly happening. But it's so easy to survive a winter of 2 years of an asset if you're already sitting on billions and then throwing your opinion around, shitting on everyone else who's actually going to make this asset even be worth something. Because it's not Craig, clearly, that makes this asset worth something. Craig made BTC worth trillions. Yeah, they made the market worth trillions. But when it comes to like BSV and how the market is evaluating BSV, it's down because of Craig. The fact that we have it exists because of Craig. So it's not like a statement on Craig, but Craig can act however the freaking hell he wants because he pioneered this stuff. Right. Like, cool. I might not agree with what you're doing, how it is that you're doing it, but it's like, all right, cool. Like it's proof of work, innit? So like, cool. But when it comes to, I think, some other actors, it's easier to respond against and also be like, nah, dude, that's not the right approach.
I think one good thing about his 180 on a lot of stuff is that I hope people just stop paying attention to him and start building stuff. Totally.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the massive sentiment that's coming through on this podcast recently as well, bro. You're saying it, Alex. Jack was hyper vocal with it. Josh has never given a fuck, to be honest. So it's good. It's good, but it's also good as well that you write for CoinGeek and there's no bias in your words, bro. So that's great as well, which means community can just band behind you as a trusted resource and someone who's just going to maintain that truth.
Thanks, man.
So again, my G, man, appreciate you, bro. And until the next time, stay on the line. We'll have another few minutes chat with you. But for everyone else, that's another episode in the Bitstocks Podcast bank. And until the next time, as you know, peace, love, and light. All the best.